The Phantom Archives of Edgar the Architect, and Schale by Gen Kagami. Volume 10, Irkutsk, The Northern Flames, The Onions of Kazan. Untethered from the concept of time, the genius architect Edgar and the pearl-haired youth Schale wander through eternity, retaining their youthful, exquisite forms. Across eras, they traverse the world's renowned architectural works and the maddening constructs Edgar himself once assembled. This is a tranquil, decadent journey through phantom architecture, dissecting space, light, gravity, and the anomalies lurking within through cold, unflinching logic. 1. The hallucination of the silver world and the silver fox fur. In the extreme cold of Irkutsk, Siberia, the atmosphere plunged below -30 degrees Celsius. It surpassed the sensation of mere coldness, delivering a piercing pain deep into the lungs, as if one were inhaling shards of shattered glass. My breath. It feels as though it might freeze and shatter before it falls, Edgar. In the midst of the pure white snow and the frost-laden mist, Schale huddled into himself, his voice trembling faintly. The thin linens of the south of France had long since vanished. His slender frame was now enveloped in a thick cloak of silver fox fur that seemed to melt into the snow. His face was half buried in the soft pelage, and his pale eyelashes were frozen over with rime, the crystallized remains of his own breath. In this polar chill, his innocent, deathless visage radiated a translucence that was almost cruel. Do not let your face wander too far from the fur. That thin skin of yours would succumb to frostbite and blacken with necrosis in less than 10 minutes. From ahead, Edgar's quiet yet definitive voice cut through the blizzard. He wore a heavy, double-breasted Ulster coat of midnight black Melton wool, tailored for naval use. With his collar turned high and his hand, encased in black leather, firmly pulling Schale's slender arm, he pressed forward, treading deeply into the snow. Even in this extremity of cold, Edgar's stride remained unerring. Beneath his jet-black fringe, his intelligent eyes were fixed upon a single point. Ahead, a spectral hallucination of colours shimmering faintly beyond the whiteout. We have arrived. Behold, the form of prayer in the far north. Edgar stopped. Through the gap in his silver fox hood, the sight rushed into Schale's vision. Within the desperate silver world of pure white, a wall of crimson brick rose up like fresh blood spilled upon the snow. Atop its summit sat several onion-shaped domes, cupolas of an extraordinary form, appearing as though the blue of the sky had been frozen and flecked with gold leaf, piercing the heavy snow clouds. The Kazan church of Irkutsk. In a Siberian winter stripped of all hue, it was a miraculous, monstrous architecture, born from a manic human craving for colour and ornament. 2. The purposefulness of frozen flames. It looks like a castle from a fairy tale. Why does it possess such a strange form? Schale murmured, entranced by the surreal contrast of red and blue, momentarily forgetting the cold. The essence of design is always purposefulness, Schale. It is the resolution of someone's problem through a unique method. Edgar cast a glance at the red brick walls pelted by the fierce snow and began to speak quietly. In Siberia, the greatest problem is snow. Upon a flat roof, several tons of it would accumulate in a single night, crushing the very structure beneath its weight. Those bizarre onion-shaped cupolas are a ruthlessly rational geometry, a method to prevent snow from lingering, allowing it to slide off naturally, to shed the snow. so it isn't just a decoration. Indeed, but that is not all. With his gloved fingertip, Edgar pointed toward the highest soaring golden onion. The Russian Orthodox Church took that form born of rational function and defined it as a flame of a candle burning toward God, sublimating it into a symbol of higher dimensional beauty and faith. A physical solution to harsh nature and a religious prayer have achieved perfect alignment. This is the terrifying power of architecture. Within Edgar's words there was the chill characteristic of one who believes in no God, yet simultaneously a certain quiet respect for the sheer tenacity of human-made spaces. 3. Golden darkness and the scent of beeswax. Pushing open the heavy double iron doors, the two stepped into the interior of the church. In that instant, the roar of the blizzard outside was utterly severed, and an overwhelming silence struck their ears. "Ah, it's warm." Schale let out a small puff of breath. In stark contrast to the vivid white and red world outside, the interior was dimly lit, with windows kept purposefully small. Yet, as if to fill the darkness, every surface from wall to ceiling was covered in shimmering golden icons. Before the central iconostasis, countless slender beeswax candles burned, giving off a faint crackling hiss. The reflected golden light illuminated Edgar's frozen jet-black hair and Shayla's silver fox fur in a manner that was hallucinatory and deeply bewitching. From the white of the extreme cold into this golden womb, the faithful are calculated to experience a true heaven here, both visually and physically. Edgar brushed the snow from his coat, inhaling deeply the sweet scent of beeswax and the ancient aroma of frankincense. 4. The golden vaults and the two-dimensional saints. Look up, Schale. This is the manic celestial beauty that humans clung to in this land of extremes. Edgar's quiet gaze invited Shayla's eyes upward. As Schale pushed back his silver fox hood and lifted his rime-encrusted platinum lashes, a breathtaking sight unfolded. Within the interior of the soaring cupola, the domed vaults where the arches intersected were filled without a single gap. Against a background of deep lapis lazuli blue and opulent gold, countless saints and angels were depicted, following the strict rules of the Orthodox Church, which forbade idolatry. They were rendered as thoroughly flat, two-dimensional icons, devoid of any three-dimensional sense of flesh. Lacking the raw, sculptural protrusions of life, these saints, composed only of lines and colours, looked down upon them with a quiet, inorganic gaze. It's incredibly beautiful, but somehow a bit suffocating. Everyone is staring this way, with the same flat faces. Naturally, they are not humans, they are mere symbols, icons. By excluding the rawness of the flesh, they fix eternal sanctity into the space. It is a calculated flatness, perfectly integrated with the architectural structure. Edgar kept his hands in the pockets of his heavy coat, looking up at the ceiling with a chilled admiration. It was immediately after this that the first faint crack appeared in that perfect space of symbols. The throbbing ceiling. Sizzle. The countless beeswax flames before the iconostasis swayed violently all at once, despite the lack of any draught. Simultaneously, the sweet frankincense filling the hall transmuted into something lukewarm and foul. It was the scent of a beast's body odour, smeared in mud, or perhaps the smell of blood and sweat from a human delirious with fever. It is coming, Schale. The planes wish to raise their dimension. Edgar's quiet, definitive voice rang through the golden darkness. As if on cue, the blue and gold of the vault began to throb with a sickening pulse. Thump, thump, like rotting meat. Edgar, the paintings on the ceiling! Schale clutched his silver fox fur, backing away in fear. The faces of the saints, which should have been flat, two-dimensional symbols, had suddenly distorted into hideous shapes and begun to possess three-dimensional flesh. Dark stains and deep wrinkles were etched into their once smooth cheeks. Their eyes became bloodshot, and lukewarm breath was exhaled in white puffs from their thin lips. It was no sacred miracle. It was the raw, tenacious desire for life itself, the mud-caked obsession of the countless humans who, while freezing and starving in the Siberian cold, had clung to this red brick church praying, "I want to live. I do not want to die." To Edgar and Schale, who possessed no death and merely drifted through eternal time, this was the most loathsome and incomprehensible of emotions. The hot, viscous attachment to life, the desire to see tomorrow, even if one must age, wither, distort into ugliness, or crawl through the mire. This obsession was breaking through the flat icons, threatening to rain down upon them from the ceiling as a sludge of fleshy masses. How hideous! To smear one's own inferior viscera across a plane that symbolizes eternity. Faced with the bloodshot throng of the living descending from above, Edgar's jet-black eyes did not waver in the slightest. He spat those words with chilled contempt and, with his hand encased in leather, struck a thick, soaring pillar beside him with his open palm. Crack! The dry sound of the impact echoed through the hall. Wake up, you mere box of bricks. What supports you is not the sweltering survival instincts of the faithful. It is the mechanics of gravity and the arch, the method calculated by us, the architects. Do not dream such inferior dreams. Edgar's absolute and arrogant declaration of purposefulness. The moment those words pierced the skeleton of the space, the ceiling, which had given one final, massive throb, snapped back into place as if a spell had been broken. In an instant, it returned to the flat, serene, two-dimensional icons of before. Left behind were only the quietly burning beeswax candles and the frozen silence of the church. Honestly, nothing taints the purity of a space quite like the human obsession with life. Edgar brushed the dust from his gloves as if nothing had happened, turning back to the still trembling Schale and letting out a sigh of slight exasperation. 6. The Baikal hellscape and the innocent roar of laughter. Leaving the Kazan church and its lukewarm dreams, the two entered their arranged vehicle and drove for an hour through the frozen, snow-covered roads. Their destination was the shore of Lake Baikal, the gargantuan water mirror hailed as the Pearl of Siberia. The moment he alighted from the car, Schale buried his face in his silver fox fur, his eyes widening as if seeing the impossible. There was not a trace of a tranquil lake surface. As far as the eye could see, the vast water mirror was completely frozen over by the extreme cold, and furthermore, it had been cracked and buckled into ridges several meters high by the tremendous pressure of nature. The thick blue ice groaned and shrieked as it collided, thrusting countless shards toward the heavens like sharp fangs or glass splinters. It was precisely like a gargantuan blue jewel box smashed open by a god, or a literal hellscape of bristling ice blades. Watch your step, Schale. These fangs of ice are sharper than any blade crafted by man. They would rend that thin skin of yours as easily as paper. Edgar spoke quietly and definitively, the hem of his black ulster coat whipped about by the violent winter gale. Beneath his leather shoes, the thick ice shattered with a dry, cracking sound. Here was the overwhelming and merciless operation of nature, a violent wilderness of white and blue that would freeze and crush the petty human obsession with life in a heartbeat. Heh, foo-foo. Suddenly Schale burst out laughing from deep within his silver fox hood. What began as a small leak of breath soon transformed into a grand, uncontrollable roar of laughter. Ha 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 ha! What is this? It's a total mess. No matter how much humans pray for eternity in their cathedral vaults, once you see something like this, it all becomes a lie, doesn't it? Laughing uncontrollably, Schale scrambled with precarious steps up a slick, sliding slope of ice and clung to a gargantuan fang of blue ice. Seeing that innocent figure, the poison suddenly drained from Edgar's chilled face. And then he too let out a voice louder than anything one might have imagined from him, laughing toward the icy hellscape. Ha 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 ha! Ah, truly, a masterpiece. No matter how perfectly we attempt to dominate space with our mechanics, method it is all equivalent to child's play before this aimless, erratic violence. Edgar kicked a shard of ice as he followed after Schale, his eyes misting with laughter. The cold polar wind carried their laughter far into the Siberian sky. Why was this icy hell so incredibly humorous to them? Was it because they themselves, stilled for eternity, resembled this frozen lake? Or was it because the riotous chaos of nature, devoid of all reason or purposefulness, had liberated them from the heavy karma of humanity? Even for the two of them, such a thing was unknown. There was no need to know. There, amidst the blue shards of shattered ice, the two who lived for eternity were laughing together, deeply joyful and innocent. That landscape alone was more beautiful and cruel than any masterpiece of architecture, etched forever into the Siberian horizon. End of Volume 10.